And I hope that anybody who hears that that's worried about a loved one who's passed or is about to pass, that there is, I can confidently say, just based off of my experience, that there is an overwhelming sense of love that I think everybody experiences, which is just, it's a nice little thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind, that people do experience love when they pass on. I don't feel like I left or lost any bit of me. Like I still felt like Chase when I was up there.
Today's guest is Chase Skylar DeMayo. Chase is a U.S. Air Force veteran and near-death experiencer.
It was so vibrant and so stunningly beautiful. It felt like you could feel the flowers, and it felt like you could feel the leaves and the trees. Like it just felt like you were just among them and we were equals with them, which it sounds a little woo, right?
My conversation with Chase is divided into 2 episodes. So this is part 2 of my conversation with Chase Skylar DeMayo. Make sure you go back and listen to the previous episode, part 1, because otherwise this will make no sense. Hey everyone! I'm really excited to let you know about the Science and Spirituality salons I'm now hosting. During these intimate events, a scientifically verified psychic medium will give all of you readings, and I will give a talk on the science and evidence that changed my mind about an afterlife. This will also be an amazing opportunity to get to meet some of you in person or virtually, and to share more about all the science and data that transformed my worldview and got me through my worst days. These can be hosted in your home, in a nearby cafe with a private room, or they can even be virtual. I've hosted a few already, and they were really special, fascinating, emotional, evidential. So if you're interested in getting a small group together over dinner, brunch, drinks, coffee, to learn more about the science and to get evidential medium readings, send me an email at hello@WTFJustHappened.net and put science and spirituality.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. So you can imagine I have a lot of questions now. So if you're okay, then we're going to go into question time.
I love questions. There's nothing off limits. There's no taboo topics for me. So anything, and I will say, before you ask questions, if I never feel like I have to make something up. So if I don't know the answer yet, I pray every day. I meditate every day. I feel like there's a big difference between the two. So there's still stuff that I'm still figuring out. And it's, even though it happened in 2008, because I put it off for 12 years to recognize what had happened, I'm still learning new stuff about my experience and what comes with it. So I'll do my best to answer.
Okay.
And if I don't know the answer, if I do get an answer, I will email you and maybe we could do another interview. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just ask you them really quickly since you said it. What for you is the difference between prayer and meditation?
Meditation, I feel like I allow the thoughts to come to me, whether it's a thought or an image or just peace, where I feel like, at least for me, prayer, I'm asking for something. I'm either asking for love and compassion for my loved ones or the world. I'm asking for protection of my son. Every night I pray and I say gratitude. I'm like, I say the same prayer every night. I'm like, thank God for my son. Thank you for everyone who protects him. And so I think, we all pray differently, right? But a lot of times I feel like in prayer, I'm the one talking.
Okay.
And so I allow, I show gratitude for the life I get to live. I show gratitude for everybody around me. And then I pray for healing and hope for everybody. When I meditate, it's often just complete silence. And I allow things to come to me, whether, again, it could be almost feel like a dream, in a sense of I get really clear symbols, things that I should consider, conversations of like, when you talk to Liz tomorrow, make sure you mention this, like really interesting stuff. And it's a blank canvas when I meditate. It's just kind of like complete. And then there's sometimes where I meditate where it just genuinely feels like a nice 15-minute nap, where it just it allows my brain a chance to kind of silence the static and and just be at peace. So I in my head, those are the two differences. I don't know if that's the Merriam-Webster definition, but
I assume it's different for everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
and I certain times of the day I pray throughout the day, and at certain times I just kind of close my eyes and allow myself to be present. At the conference last year, I put up a slide of a gentleman and a dog sitting on the beach, and you could just see the backs of them. And I think about it all the time. I've got an incredible Australian Shepherd, and even my son at his age, like when you're picturing a gentleman or a female at the beach and a dog looking out at the ocean, what is the dog thinking about? He's thinking about how beautiful the beach is, how he wants to jump in the waves. He's appreciating the moment that he's in. And then the person, guy, girl, is probably thinking about, what time is it? What are we going to have for dinner? Am I going to be able to pay my taxes this year? My boss at work is a pain. You know, like we're so disconnected from just being in the present a lot of times. And I feel like my near-death experience, unfortunately dying, had to, you know, kind of be the knock over the head, but appreciating the moment that I'm in and being able to take a step back and kind of zoom out and go, things aren't as bad as they feel. What is my dog thinking about right now? Is he thinking about just, I want me to scratch his head? You know, like that's the life that I want to live. And I think there's a balance. Like, of course we have to pay bills and we have to work. And, but I think that it's a very healthy to have a balance of just appreciating where we are. And meditation gives me that. So.
Now, okay, so I'm going to back up very early on in your near-death experience. You were talking about your feet in the dirt and feeling sensations. Does it feel as real as if you were walking in the dirt now, except you actually would like being barefoot, which apparently you don't like in your real life?
It does. It 100%. It felt so real. It felt realer than real in the sense of there was no gravity on my body. There was no pain. So I was able to feel everything, I think. You know, there was no worry about what my parents are going to think when they find out I'm dead. It was just this confidence that I was supposed to be there and I got to appreciate everything around me, which maybe some people can feel that here on earth if they have zero cares or worries, right? Which it must be nice, right? But yeah, it was so real for me, not just because of my feet in the dirt and I can feel the grain of dirt kind of going in through my toes, but the feeling and the feeling of like the vibration around me and it's just different than when you get in a dream. I dream, you know, I assume I dream every night. Whether I remember it every night is a different story, right? Like most people. But a dream, you know, is a dream. Deja vu is a really close, I would say, second, because if you are lucky enough, I would say, to experience deja vu at times, and you're like, I knew this was going to happen to me. I knew this already happened. I had a dream about that. It's closer to deja vu than it is a dream, you know, like where you're like, this is really familiar. I already knew this. So for me, yeah, it's the skeptic in me, especially at first, was like, I would love to think that that was made up. You know, I would love to think that this was a chemical reaction to my heart dying. Okay. Right? That would be the easier option, I think, for me to just go, well, it's science. It's just DMT or whatever people say it could be. I feel like that would have been the easier way out for me than to realize that this was a very real experience that I lived, and having to come back and deal with the fact that I had died, and I had watched nurses and doctors watch me die, which is something that sticks with me. You know, I watched somebody else watch me die, which is painful, you know, and I ended up being okay, and they might not be. They might remember me from years ago, and gosh, I watched this young guy die, and like, so there's very real experiences that came from it that makes me realize that it wasn't a dream. So,
meaning all the physical sensations and like feeling you felt you were in a body. You didn't feel like a disembodied energy.
I didn't, you know, to be fair, I didn't look down at my limbs. I felt dirt in my feet. So that's why I assume when I say like my body floated up and my body got close to Jesus and me as a little boy, because I could feel my feet in the dirt. But I also don't necessarily remember if I looked the way I looked. You know, I wasn't able to look at, I don't remember what my hands looked like.
Right.
There's no mirror around, right? So I don't know what my face would have looked like, but I certainly felt like it was still me. I felt like I was still myself and I hadn't lost who I was, in that moment. And then, I know I already mentioned it, but like, it's not what I would have picked for myself for heaven, right? It's not what I would have imagined subliminally, even. Like, at no point in my life up to being 19 did I think like, I'm going to die and see myself as a little boy and I'm going to run into Jesus and I'm going to be in this beautiful forest. Like, all of that, as far as I know, was not preconceived for me or something that I had dreamt about or wanted even. It was, I think I probably at that time probably would have rather met Elvis Presley, like that was my hero, he was my hero when I was a little kid, like, or
That's
maybe
so
I would have
cute.
met my grandpa, who served in the Navy. Like, it was, it just happened to be, I met Jesus, which a lot of people are interested in because of course, the gravity that Jesus has on the world, whether you're religious or not. He obviously is a huge figure in all of our lives at some degree. So for me, it's interesting that that's who I met. But not to discredit other people who have near-death experiences and that run into their cats that they had. I think that's just as meaningful, because there's a symbol there that they're meeting their cat, somebody that they loved, and somebody who cared for them. And I think it's just the sense of knowing that you're not alone in this world, even when it feels like it's very easy to feel alone. Even if you're married, have kids, have a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, like family around, like I think all of us at times feel alone. And it's just nice. A nice part of a near-death experience is to realize that we're not alone, no matter who you meet. So
I'm going to ask you more about your encounter with Jesus and Little
Yeah.
Boy, but I want to first ask, you said you saw colors and flowers in ways you don't see them here. Now, I want to understand, did you see, like you mentioned, like purples, blues? Did you see just purples and blues and reds and whatever in different ways? Or did you see something that was on a color spectrum that we can't even imagine? That's not anywhere near the color spectrum we see. So there isn't even a word for it, colors.
You nailed it, Liz. Like, you took the words right out.
Okay.
There's like, it was so vibrant and so stunningly beautiful that there's just hues. And the best way I can describe it is the colors that we grow up knowing and that we are so confident. Like, we know purple's a real color. We know that blue's a real color. So it's so easy to just say that it's blue, but more vibrant. Like, it's the best way to describe it. It's also the laziest way to describe it, right? Because I'm like, it's just really blue, but it felt like you could feel the flowers and it felt like you could feel the leaves and the trees. Like, it just felt like you were just among them and we were equals with them, which it sounds a little woo, right? It sounds woo because it sounds like we're like living among, but the colors were so bright that it just felt like, we know that we get oxygen right here on Earth from flowers and plants and all that stuff. But like, this felt like I was actually living off of those colors. Like, it just felt so beautiful and vibrant and loving. And if I walk outside right now, I don't know if I would feel love from the flowers that are in front of my house. But there, you just feel like everything loves you, right? Like, it's hard to explain. It is. I hope that at some point in my life I can find a better word than the word I use, which is just super vibrant,
And did the flowers, you said you felt love coming from them? Were they like individual consciousness, the way like a dog is a consciousness?
I would assume so. Because I felt this overwhelming sense of love. And I don't think I only received that from Jesus and me as a little boy. I think I felt love and this vibrational happiness and joy from everything around me, even from the dirt in my feet. It just felt like I was my body felt free from gravity, but it also felt super surrounded by this incredible sense of joy, and this incredible sense of happiness, and that there was no worries. My wife's Australian. She always says no worries, like that's what comes to mind is like, there's just nothing to worry about when you're surrounded by all of that. Which is nice. And I hope that anybody who hears that that's worried about a loved one who's passed or is about to pass, that there is I can confidently say, just based off of my experience, that there is an overwhelming sense of love that I think everybody experiences, which is just, it's a nice little thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind, that people do experience love when they pass on, no matter what maybe your thought is. I can only share confidently what I know.
Mm-hmm. And even to me personally, more importantly than love, I'd even be like, you experienced individuality. It sounds like too. You experienced yourself, and okay. So
I don't feel like I don't feel like I left or lost any bit of me. Like I still felt like Chase when I was up there, which was nice. And who knows if I reincarnate, I don't have that answer. But if I do, I hope that I get to be some little piece of me, and because when I was in heaven, I felt like me for sure.
So now you mentioned Jesus. I mean this with total respect, as I say, where my mind comes from. I'm atheist who thinks now our consciousness is non-physical. I do think Jesus existed as a human being. Now, do you think, and what makes you think it was definitely Jesus? Do you think it possibly could be like your guide or someone on the other side that was like always with you, and based on your cultural upbringing, you interpret it as Jesus? Like, because I'll say if I meet Jesus, I'm probably going to come back and say, oh, I met like one of my great uncles and he has a beard, like because of my cultural interpretations. So
what was interesting for me was, like, if I look at my parents, I know that they're my parents. I knew that it was Jesus right away, as if I had already met him and I knew him. And again, he wasn't anything that I looked like. So yesterday, this is a random tidbit, but it reminds me of it. My nephew came into town. I've not seen him for 7 years, and he popped up. We were meeting for dinner and he popped up in front of me. It took me a second to recognize him, because it had been so long, and now he's like 26. He's like a grown man, basically. But I knew it was him, right? And so even though I didn't recognize him right away, like as soon as Jesus turned to me, I knew it was Jesus. Now, it's fair to, like, I think a lot of religions or a lot of people at least established that he was a real person. I know people just think maybe he was a prophet, maybe he wasn't the son of God. Like there's all that variation, which is all fair. And meaningful to certain people, and especially atheists. Some atheists believe that at the very least he was a human. Do we believe everything else? And that's fair. My job is not to try to convert anybody into Christianity or convince them of anything. But for me, it was so clear that was Jesus. Like it was him. And I will add that years later, I watched the movie. I think it's Heaven is for Real. The first one, I forget which one came first, but I watched Heaven is Real while I was on the cruise ship, and we watched the movie. I cried the whole time. My then girlfriend, wife now, she had already heard the story that I shared with her, so she cried during the whole movie. And then at the very end, they show the picture that the little boy recognized of Jesus, and that is 100% the exact same photo. It's a drawing by a girl named, she was, I think, 9 at the time, Akiani, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong. And I think that the photo is called, the drawing is Prince of Peace. But for me, that's like a photograph. Like if you and I do the Zoom, this is an exact replication of what we look like. That was him. So that really threw me back. And it was even further confirmation of, I'm not the only one who saw that Jesus, right? And I'd never seen that painting before, as far as I know. And that movie was the first time I had seen the movie or heard about the painting. So I was like, I really wept when I saw that photo of him, and I still look at that photo. I've got it in my bedroom, because that's the version of Jesus that I saw, and multiple people have seen that same version of Jesus. So if I'm wrong, then I think a lot of people are wrong, if it wasn't him. But I've been able to see spirit guides when I'm in the right frame of mind. And I can vividly now, I'm not a good artist, but if I saw a photo of them, I would say that's the guy that I saw when I was meditating. And it's not who I would have thought. And it's a completely different person, different ethnicity, different hair. Like it's a very strong, like bald African man that is like tough and rigid, so I see different faces. And I just know that the one I saw during my near-death experience was Jesus. And it's so hard to describe because when I see my son every morning, I know that's my son, right? So there is complete confidence that that's who I saw. And to some people, it would be a lot easier if I didn't tell people I met Jesus,
But it's your honest experience. Yeah.
And it's because my experience was meeting Jesus, it brings in more skeptics, I think, to my story, which I am very aware of, right? Like, it brings in more religious people that are heavily religious that feel like I have a deep connection to Jesus and that I'm able to help them more than somebody else. And then it also brings in a lot of anger from people who don't believe in Jesus that reach out to me. But I will say, which is really nice, it means a lot to me, I would say I get almost equal amount of emails from atheists that send really nice messages to me. I don't get like angry letters. I get a lot of skeptics, which is fair. I'm skeptic of a lot of things, but I also have to believe other people's story if I believe my own. But I get really nice messages from atheists that say, well, maybe it's hard for me to believe the Jesus part of your story, but I do believe this, this, and this. And for me, that's really nice, that people are open to at least hearing that, that there's something out there, whether it's what they believe in or not. So, sometimes I make Christians mad with my story and sometimes I make atheists mad and vice versa. But I can't alter my story out of the fear of the emails that I might get, I get messages that say, how could you have this deep understanding of peace, but still support the military? And I'm like, well, hold on. Like I joined when I was 17 and like, there's nuances and everything else. So I think, people are very quick to comment on YouTube videos without kind of understanding the full picture of life, So, I know that's a long answer to my question, but,
it's interesting. And I can say as an atheist, I mean, I 110% believe everything you said is your interpretation, but I can also see how you could meet Jesus as an atheist.
If you want to learn how I went from being a skeptical atheist who thought there was zero chance of an afterlife to a skeptical atheist who thinks an afterlife is highly probable, come check out my books. WTF Just Happened.
I can also see how you could meet Jesus as an atheist. I don't believe in God. I believe Jesus was a human, maybe a more advanced human. I definitely think some of us are more advanced than others. And maybe, I'm not even saying this is right. I don't know. But, we all have to interpret things, and maybe he has, a whole soul group. And then, and if he was a person, he'd be on the other side, just like the way I might see my grandpa if I passed. And maybe, I have a guide who was alive like 1,000 years ago too. And maybe they were like my parents in that life and they were on their like 1,000th life and I was on like my second. And, maybe I'm in their little group and I'd see them and I'd be like, oh, that was, so do that totally could be it. If Jesus was a person, he'd be on the other side too, probably reincarnated sometimes too. I'm guessing. I don't know.
I think the beautiful thing about this life is that none of us actually know for certainty until we die. Right. And that's a really cool thing in a way, right? Like we're supposed to live this life, which is a tough life, no matter who you are. There's people that we are jealous of in life that we think has a good life. And then you kind of peel back the onion and realize that they maybe don't have as good of a life as we assume. So we all struggle to some point, and we all have to fight that and try to live as good of a life as we possibly can while we're here. And then we all find out for sure when we die, right? Hopefully.
If it survives, then we know for sure.
Yeah. And I do think that and to be fair, I don't ever, even though I identify, of course, as a Christian, I also believe wholly that over time, we have been very blessed with people to come and hopefully spread love and good messages throughout eternity. There's so many names, of course, when I say that people pop up, they think of like a Buddha or David or Moses. Like there's multiple, there's Vikings, there's Native Americans. Being here in Florida, of course, we have a huge like Native American. We grow up in schools learning about that. Like I do believe that there's ascended masters, I think is the right term that people would identify with of people that have been sent down, so to speak, to spread hope. And then it's just our job. Do we listen to them or not?
Right.
And I think that's a really cool thing that before cell phones and before trains and before planes, like religion really couldn't spread very easily, right? So I think historically speaking and not spiritually speaking, like we have to wonder how is religion and hope supposed to reach certain parts of the world where nobody else was getting there, and we have to hope that there is people that were there to spread love and the same messages that we get from other religions, you know.
And I sometimes think you brought up about like there are these very important spiritual people spreading love, and it could, I would think, even be in ways that are very, no one would even think of it that way. It could be like the teacher at a school, a school where a lot of kids are struggling, and they're just the teacher that, sticks up for the kids against abusive teachers and makes all the kids feel loved and really helps them and gives them a hug every morning and makes what could be like a very cold experience at school sometimes can be this wonderful growing. It could be a lawyer fighting for social justice. It could be a therapist that it could,
Yeah. You nailed, like if I gave a speech a couple of weeks ago locally here in Orlando, and that was like, you just summed up my entire speech in like 30 seconds so beautifully. Like,
I had no idea. I didn't even hear it.
People will ask, what do I need to do to feel fulfilled, to live a good life? And I'm like, it's not, you don't have to go into clergy. You don't have to do this grand, like you don't have to do what people think is like makes you a good person. Like just walking down the grocery store aisle and smiling at somebody, and who cares if they think you're weird or crazy? Like it's going to, if it hits 5 out of the 10 people and makes them smile a little bit more, then you've done an incredible job that day. If you stick up for the less fortunate, if you defend somebody that you feel like isn't able to defend themselves, like you are doing incredible work, whether it's spiritually backed or just because you are a good person and want to spread good. There's something to be like, people are like, oh, well, are you saying I should quit my job and go into, and I'm like, no, like you can make a big difference in no matter what job you have, just being a decent person, being nice to other people, not knowing what other struggles people are going through, just being able to show compassion, I think is better and more important in a lot of ways than going into what you feel like is a grand gesture of a career. I smile at everybody. I'm 6'3", I'm 6'2", 6'3", and I'm a big guy, and I smile at everybody. And people, for some people that makes their day, and for some people they roll their eyes and think I'm weird or creepy. But like I have to own myself and ask myself, was I nice to people? Did I make a difference at all for anybody today? Was I nice? Did I have nice manners? I mean, there's just these little things, and I don't do those. I'm really big on not doing them for credit, right? Like I don't donate to charity so I can pat myself on the back and post about it on social media. It's just doing nice things because it's the right thing to do, and not so we can get credit for it, I think is like so important. So I'm so glad that you said what you said, because that is like a big emphasis of just treating people well goes so much further than what we give credit for, I think.
Because I think I used to feel paralyzed by that. I'd be like, I don't have like $10 billion. And if I had $10 billion, I would cure hunger and I would cure homelessness. And then it's like, and I would almost end up paralyzed because I'd be like, oh, well, I'll just go through my like little job and not do it, because it just, the idea of making a difference felt so big. I felt like I couldn't do anything. And I feel like, since studying all this, that's really changed, because it's like, exactly what you said, in the small ways. Like, no, I don't have like Elon Musk's money, and I'm like, if I had that, instead of destroying our entire world, and in my opinion, sorry, I won't make you have to say anything, but I know.
But you're right. Like, my mentality is that I feel like I can make a big difference directly around me. Easier than it's, because it is daunting and overwhelming to think, can I make a huge difference, right? Like, I hope that giving big speeches, and I was so shocked and humbled that I got to do one of the keynote speeches at the IANDS conference last year, and I'll speak this year.
It made a big difference to me, your talk. It really did.
Thank you. Like that to me is super meaningful, but it's also meaningful of just like talking to a friend and helping them when their parents get a diagnosis. Like I equalize those things. I just sometimes get an opportunity to talk to a wide audience, but I also think it's incredibly special when I can make a difference directly next to me. Donate, if a kid comes and he's trying to sell a candy bar to the front door, like I'll give him double the money. It's not again to pat myself on the back, but I'm like that. He might go to the next house and be ecstatic, and he might go to bed a little bit happier, or who knows, who knows what.
And in 20 years, he might remember that too, and then do that to help. I feel like when people are treated well, they then like to go treat others well. When people are treated poorly, they often carry an anger and try to spread that.
It's a ripple of it is life is a ripple effect. It's a butterfly effect. The butterfly effect, if anybody's not familiar, I mean, I can oversimplify it. I'm sure there's people that'll be like, that's not how to describe it, but it's just the thought of how one small decision or act can immensely affect, I mean, the biggest example is like if I stub my toe or if I kick somebody else, does that cause a car accident 3 days later? Like it's the thought of like, if we do something really kind, does that create more kindness? Or if we do something really aggressive or hurtful, what does that mean 5 days from now? Because it's this effect of how one small change can have a huge impact on another side of the world, especially now that we're all more connected than we ever could have imagined. So to me, that's kind of my definition of the butterfly effect of like my little tiny chain reaction of what that means for somebody else. And I think, again, like we have way more power than we give ourselves to make a positive impact. I mean, kindness goes a really, really far way, in my opinion.
I agree. I really do. I want to actually then back up and ask again about seeing yourself as a little boy with what you call Jesus. Sorry to give the disclaimer. I hope I'm not being disrespectful. It's just hard for me as an atheist to I try to say Jesus and like my voice won't let me.
I have friends that are close to me that go, that guy, I have a friend who's Jewish that always will be like, who? And I'm like, yes, I know who.
I'm culturally Jewish too.
I don't know if I've always been that way or if it's my near-death experience. I just don't get offended by much, I think it's a confidence of my experience and how I experienced it. But just in life in general, I don't allow myself to get offended. I had a drill sergeant in the Air Force that looked at my last name and tried to think of all the offensive things, thinking I was Italian, to offend me. And he's like, what do you think if I say that to you? And I was like, I think I would laugh, sir. And he was like, fine, whatever. And walked away and realized that he couldn't get to me. So I guess it was before my near-death experience. But being raised by your grandparents, you end up getting tough skin,
I relate in many ways. I mean, I probably get maybe more offended by some things than you, but the things people tease me about, I don't care most of the time. In a way, I think a lot of this stuff is so made up, like nationalities, divisions, religions. Like, I think it's all just so made up that I kind of don't take it seriously enough to get offended.
Yeah.
Some moments, I guess, like, it depends the level. If it's like when it ties into like taking away rights and demeaning me, because I think that's just experience sometimes you get as a woman. Like if you're trying to literally take away my choices and think you can, like that offends me. Or,
I think there's a difference between offensive and then hurtful, right? Like somebody's trying to hurt you, that's different, right? And I absolutely get hurt still. There's still times where I get hurt, but I don't necessarily get offended. And I think in my mind there's a difference, but I don't know if I could articulate that difference. So
maybe it's the energy of the person it's coming from. Like sometimes I feel like, maybe your experience in military, or like when I did, like I pledged fraternity Little Sisters and was in like a lot of social groups, and they'll like, it kind of comes from rather than truly offensive. It's almost like a game, and there's a playfulness to it of a type of teasing that maybe some people like got really upset with stuff like hazing. I thought it was really fun and like, but it came from like a loving place maybe, or a teasing place, or a system. It really depends. It's individually based, because sometimes you can even walk past a person who maybe says something harmless, but you just feel like a radiating hatred from them. And it's a horrible feeling. And it's a lot more offensive than maybe someone else saying something that maybe
Absolutely
would
true.
be societally offensive, but you feel that they're a very loving person and they haven't been exposed to much, and maybe they literally haven't been exposed to enough to know that's offensive, and
That's true.
and those two will feel very different,
Yeah, absolutely true. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Okay, so back to you as a little boy.
Yeah.
You saw yourself as a little boy. Now, what is your interpretation? Were you seeing like an imp? I mean, I don't even know how to ask this. I feel like it's sort of what I think of when I think of this as time, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's a clear enough situation for me to know exactly how to ask this because it's so not concrete what you saw.
Yeah.
Do you think you were seeing an imprint of yourself on the other side of like waiting to be born, and you were seeing
Yeah.
into the past? You were a little kid, like with what you call Jesus, like to come into this world? Or do you think it was like a part of you that's always there? The way, there's theories that there's a part of us like somehow tied into time.
Yeah.
That like every little part of us is somewhere. And that literally is the case too, visually, if you look
Yeah.
at the way light carries, each experience, and you can
Yeah.
look through telescopes into the past. I know I'm not asking this coherently, but
No,
how
I
do you
know what you're
explain
asking. Yeah.
that moment? I think of, what is that movie? It's the one where they show the Tesseract at the end, and it's the little girl. It's like the planet's dying, and the little girl always is seeing like a ghost through her whole life, and she finds
Yeah.
out it's, actually after her father like goes to another dimension. I don't remember if he exactly passes away, but the ghost turns out it's her father. And at the same time, while she's having this ghost experience, her father's living. But because
Yeah.
it shows the Tesseract reaching out to her after he's died,
Yeah.
the ghost is her father. So what is the name of that movie?
I can't
if you,
get, and I can
I'm good.
picture it. I can
Mhm.
picture the
Picture
movie,
it.
and then I can't
Don't worry
think
about
of
it. I'm going to Google the name and I'll edit
I'm
in.
going to IMDb it afterwards.
The movie is Interstellar. I can't believe I forgot the name. It's one of my favorites.
That's the scene I'm thinking of. This kind of weird time warp of different dimensions where you're seeing a version of yourself and like it's all kind of conscious at the same time in a way when we
Yeah.
don't edit time the way we experience here. Does that make any sense what I just said?
It does, and I've never thought of it as deep as how you explained it. Like I've always felt like at least, and again, this might just be my brain thinking like this is the easy answer for me,
Sure.
is that I was just being shown a snapshot of a better version of myself.
Okay.
I was almost like you're being shown now like a YouTube or an Instagram reel or a video or a memory of, a video of you younger. I felt like I was just being shown an example of me being happy and stress-free and worry-free.
Okay.
As like a reminder of, do you remember this kid? This kid didn't take life so seriously. This little boy was happy. He was carefree. He wasn't burdened by life. He wasn't thinking about how life was out to get you, and so for me, I think I was just watching, like, I think Jesus was the one to sit there and show me, like, better. Life isn't about the material stuff. At the time, I thought my career was over. I thought my life was over. I'm going to have to move back in with my parents, or what am I going to do? And I had all these like so unimportant looking back fears that life wasn't going to be okay if I got out of the military. And so I think I was being shown exactly what I needed to see at that time, which was life is not about all of this stuff that you're worrying about. Life is about joy and happiness and making others around you laugh. And like, I think that was what I was supposed to see in that time.
Got it.
But like I mentioned, I think also the more I meditate, the more I kind of am able to kind of go in and reestablish and rethink of stuff. I sat outside of my driveway after this kind of coming out of the spiritual closet. I sat in my driveway one day after like a walk or a run, and I just sat and I cried because I watched myself playing in a garden with a woman, which I think I don't know if I've ever shared that publicly, maybe like in a group setting, but maybe not on a podcast. But I sent a photo. I called my wife and I was like freaking out, crying. And I was like, overwhelmed.
Like during a meditation, you had a vision of yourself in a field playing with a woman, and you and you were married at this point when you had this.
Married at this point. And then the weird thing was I went to, before my near-death experience, I didn't even know how to pronounce Reiki. I didn't even know if I believed in it. I was very skeptical, I believed in mediums when it was fun and convenient to believe in mediums, but I also didn't know if there was any truth to it. Like I really was a pretty skeptical person. So I probably would have pronounced Reiki, right? I don't even know how to say it, at the time. But I went to a Reiki school, and I went through all the steps to get to my master's certification as kind of my way of just educating myself on this incredible world that I had kind of outcasted growing up. And the woman had behind her a little hand-drawn sign of the Mary Magdalene symbol. And I didn't know that that's what it was. And I pointed to it and I said, "What is that symbol?" And she's like, "Oh, that's the symbol of Mary Magdalene. Why?" And I said, "I saw that clear image and I didn't know how to explain it. I didn't bother to Google it. Like that symbol was in so many of my meditations and I had never seen it before." And she's like, "Yeah, that's the Mary Magdalene symbol." And I ended up getting a tattoo of it on my one and only tattoo, because I had never wanted a tattoo growing up. I think my parents probably put that in my head of like tattoos are evil, And the symbol I had seen so many times, and I saw it when I was playing with this woman. So I had to then question, was the woman that I was playing in the garden with Mary Magdalene? Like, again, who am I to meditate me playing in a garden with Mary Magdalene now? Like, first it was Jesus, now it's like, I'm just a kid and I'm not deserving of these moments, I would say, in my mind. But it was so interesting to me to be like, continually see this one symbol, and it happens to be the symbol for Mary Magdalene. So I'm still diving into that stuff to try to figure out what it all means. So again, like the long-winded answer is I think there's more for me to explore on, did I just see what I needed to see in that moment, or is there more to it? Did I always get to play in a garden with Mary Magdalene or Jesus, or, out in the forest? Like, is that something that I am just fortunate enough to get to do? Or is it what I need to see in those moments for me to go out and be better in the world, and help the world? I don't know. I don't know yet.
Maybe you were remote viewing into the future of going to this Reiki that you were supposed to be doing, know? I mean, I sometimes
coincidences. Yeah.
Yeah. It might not even be. And that would be something you would lock into because it's a meaningful symbol for you because you were raised Catholic, I mean, I'm not saying that's right. This is just where my mind goes.
It makes sense when you say it though, right? Like I know people might not be able to see you, but I'm kind of shrugging like, yeah, I mean, those are things that like, when I was growing up, we thought Pluto was a planet, and apparently it's not anymore, right? Like there's just so many things that I think is fact that I'm also so open to knowing is not, which I know is kind of a funny example, but like there's so many, I'm so willing still to change my perception if I'm shown something different, which is why I continually meditate and pray to see if I learn more. My time in heaven I don't know how long it was. I don't know how brief it was. But I know that there's still opportunity for me to learn from that, even though it happened so long ago. I think there's opportunity for me to grow from it and still get messages from that moment, hopefully without me having to die again, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to get all that too without dying.
Yeah. It's overrated,
one day. Although I would love to have a near-death experience as long as I didn't have like permanent physical issues. And that's actually something that I find really interesting. It sounds like with the medical situation you were in, and you were then brought to a place essentially that was not hospice, but it was for basically people who had passed. Now you then just that night, you said you texted or you posted on back then Facebook, and then you went and ate and were just normal. Is there, and you are not, from every medical thing that you experienced, normally I would picture you then being sent back to the hospital on IVs, released maybe like minimum 2 weeks later with medicines and sleeping at home with like your family caring for you. There seems to be something with near-death experiencers where they heal so inexplicably fast. Is that kind of what you feel you would interpret with that?
Yeah, I'm so fortunate. I still get my heart checked constantly. Just I think a little bit out of a fear, especially as being a dad now. I want to make sure that I stay healthy for my son. I think
A lot of you have heard me talk about the Forever Family Foundation. They were absolutely instrumental in helping my grief and in changing my view of the probability of an afterlife. They use science-based testing to certify psychic mediums, have a scientific advisory board, and they host grief retreats. They will be hosting a special grief retreat this October in California, only for parents who have lost a child. The founders, Fran and Bob Ginsberg, who've become like parents to me, although Fran sadly passed in 2020, started the foundation after the passing of their daughter, Bailey, so helping grieving parents is dear to their hearts. This retreat will have psychic mediums and speakers. While they host many grief retreats during the year, having been through it themselves, they understand the unique type of grief and the safe environment needed for those who have lost a child. For more information and to sign up, go to foreverfamilyfoundation.org. I'll also have the link to this retreat in the show notes.
stay healthy for my son. I think, if I don't know how I go, right? Like to put it, but I don't want it to be my fault, right? Like I don't want it to be because I don't take care of I don't want my time to be short with my son because of a selfish decision I've made. If it sounds graphic, but we're talking about death. Like if it's in a car accident or something, like I can only do so much about that. But if I'm able to eat healthier every day and take care of my body to live longer, hopefully for my son, I'm going to take it. So I get my heart checked constantly out of fear of like, is my heart going to calcify from being dead for it? And we don't know. I can't go tell a doctor that it stopped for an hour. I can't tell him that it stopped for 20. I just don't know how long. So I think there's a genuine concern of like what long-term effects that me dying is going to have on me in 10, 20 years from now. There's people who get traumatic brain injuries or concussions now that we learn 20, 30 years can there's some ties scientifically right now to maybe getting dementia or Alzheimer's. Of course, there's doctors that don't think but there might be, right? So I think people who get concussions should continually get checked and get CAT scans and MRIs to make sure that, science catches up with their experience. So yeah, I mean, I think that there's something to be said about my near-death experience, that my heart is great, knock on wood. There's no damage to it. I was diagnosed, which again could just be coincidence, but about 2 years ago, somewhat before the IANDS conference in DC. So yeah, about 2 years ago, the VA had done blood work and they told me I had liver failure. And I don't really drink alcohol. I might have a drink every once in a while, like in a social setting. But they called me and were like, "Were you drinking? Like, what's going on? Like, you're way too young to have liver." And I was in so much pain in my liver. My wife was concerned. I reached out to Diana Bamford, who I mentioned earlier, to see if she had any insight, and Michelle Clare, who's part of like our IANDS world, who introduced me at the conference. See if I could get some sort of like mystical, spiritual insight as to why my liver is failing. And within like 2 days, it was gone, just gone. And so I went back and got the blood work again. And the VA said that my blood work was great and my liver was fine and the pain was gone. And somebody listening might be like, well, it might just been a bad test result. Like I might have eaten something the night before, which is totally fair. But your question kind of was like with near-death experiences healing. I don't know if I took on somebody else's pain, which is very spiritual and very woo, right? But I also, how else could I explain that I went from like having catastrophic, almost liver failure and pain to 2 days later, my liver is completely healthy now. I got, probably 3 more blood works in the last 2 years or 4, and there's 0 issues again. So it's weird. I don't know if I heal better or if I'm taking other people's pain and then getting rid of that pain. I still think I'm trying to figure that out. I had sat in my car and was kind of shouting at the sky again a couple of years ago and was like, am I like gifted? Am I spiritually gifted? Do I have gifts? Like what's going on? Mm-hmm. And I walked into a store here in Orlando and I was looking, it was right before Thanksgiving. I was looking for a turkey table runner, to put for Thanksgiving decorations. And I felt like I was having a heart attack. I was having this horrible pain in my heart where I thought, if this goes on for another 10, 20 seconds, I'm going to have to ask somebody to call 911 or like mosey out, stumble out to my car and call, I didn't want to cause a scene. And down the road to the right of me, a woman and a man and a daughter connect, and they're like, "Hey, oh my gosh, how have you been? Hey, how's your husband?" And she goes, "Oh, well, we thought it was COVID, but he ended up having a heart attack." And I can hear this 15 feet away, and I'm like, "Whoa, what a coincidence that I'm feeling this." Yeah. So I start to walk out of the aisle, even though that's the aisle I need to be in. I walk out of the aisle, and my left leg starts to feel so numb and painful that I almost feel like I have to start limping. And I come around to the next aisle, and there's a gentleman, a larger gentleman wearing like what the compression, like diabetes socks. Yeah. And his left leg is like black and blue swollen. And so I left my cart somewhere like around that area. I walked back out to my car and I looked back up at the sky. I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm almost like, okay, I get it. Like but can I just have a normal shopping experience? I'm sorry I asked if I have any sort of gifts, like just let me go in and buy this table runner. But I do feel like, especially if I ask for it and I don't know what I'm doing, I can feel other people's pain really easily. And if I want to live a normal life with my son, I also have to be selfish sometimes and just say, I don't want to feel anything. I just want to be in the present moment so my son can have a normal life. But I do think that I feel other people's pain often. And I think that I am hopefully able to at least heal the people around me. Maybe that's because of Reiki. Maybe that's because of spiritual gifts that I've been given from my near-death experience. I know like I think Raymond Moody did a study years ago, like a scientific study that like there's almost 100% increase after a near-death experience of a feeling like you can help others with their pain, or ESP and all these different things. Really interesting study that sometimes I reference for school that, there's got to be a reason, right? Like I think once we go beyond that fail, I don't think you're going to come back normal in multitude of ways. So I do think that there's a little bit of healing aspect, which is nice to have. So.
Yeah, and you're working, you said you're studying now like holistic medicine and so now you mentioned that after effect. Another after effect you had mentioned in your talk is that you knew the story of a missing girl. Yeah. Is that something you've thought of moving forward with, working with the police? Do you often get information like that about missing people?
There's a little bit of guilt that I don't do more on, if I'm being completely honest and transparent. Like, could I go out there and help people with their loss or tragedy? Or, I mean, it sounds, even when I say it out loud, like, could I help solve crimes? Like, do I think that I am special enough or important enough to do anything like that? What I have found is in my my gifts and also my personality is not necessarily waiting for, like, not charging for a session, or I don't do anything like that. That's not something that I offer or am even considering offering. What I have found works for my personality type is interacting with strangers that I see in person and being able to give them the right message at the right time that I am obviously getting from somewhere else. A good example is like my wife and I were shopping at a farmer's market, and this gentleman was selling like handmade garlic graters, right? Really nice guy. My wife looked, she knows when I'm getting a message, I guess you could say. And she's like, "Oh, we're going to go over there, right?" And I'm like, "We're going to go buy whatever he's selling, because I want to support him." So we go over to him. This tall guy, probably not, he had dreadlocks, like very like Jamaican looking guy, like really cool vibe. And I was just talking to him, and he's like giving me a spiel of how this garlic grater works. And I'm like, "Great, we'll take two." And I kind of cut him off, not trying to be rude, but I was like, "I don't care what you're selling. I'll buy two of them." And we walk away, and I regretted not sharing a message with him. So we awkwardly did like this whole lap. And before we left to walk to the car, I went back and I just went up to him and I said, "I know you're doing this for a very specific reason. And your parents are so proud of you right now. And he tilted his head to the side like a dog would, like when you're like interested in something, and he started to tear up. And that message meant something to him. And that was it. I said, I'm so proud of you. Everybody's proud of you. And I walked away. And for me, that means more with my personality type, right? Like if I saw a woman at a baseball game and she had two sons, and the sons were typical like teenage age. They were being a little bit, frustrating. And you could tell that she was just at the end of her rope, a little bit distraught, a little bit discouraged. And I knew that she had lost her husband and they had lost their dad. And I just wanted to go up and tell her, you're doing such a great job as a mom, without me having to go up and say, look, I know your husband, like, I didn't want to bring that up. I just wanted to compliment her and say, man, what a great mom you are. Like your kids are so well behaved, and then walk away. And it's like, I'm here in Orlando. So of course, like Disney, like sprinkling fairy dust, that's my way of spreading my gift without it being so confrontational to people. And I feel like for me, that's like my comfort. Like I feel good about doing that when those messages come, and the times that I haven't shared those messages, I remember every single time that I haven't, and I live with regret for that. There's instances where I'm like, it's not the right time. How are they going to react? Are they going to like turn around and punch me in the face? Like there's like concern. And then because I have so much regret for those times that I haven't shared those messages, I'm encouraged, like I'm going to do the right thing. And if they get upset, then I feel really bad, but I'm obviously making somebody happy who's giving me those messages. So it's this human battle of what's right to do, without, I also worry, like if I have these gifts and I don't use them, am I going to lose them? So I struggle with that. I struggle with that day to day of like, I want to live a normal human life selfishly with my family, but I also want to spread my gift. So how do I do it? And I'm still figuring that out. So
as you saw the post and you shared it, I asked, I always say I'll take one question from our listeners. So Philip wrote in, I think this is a really good question. I had never even thought to ask this. What was the most surprising experience of your NDE? Like, what was something that is not really covered or is completely absent in contemporary research of NDEs? Is there anything
there's, I think, from the medical and the science side of it, I think we talk about the spiritual after effects of a near-death experience, but we kind of touched on it. What's the physical after effects of it? The spiritual side, like people joke, like we all break electronics easier. We might get premonitions, or we might be more empathic. But I think, again, what's the physical after effects like for me or somebody who a lot of near-death experiences come from traumatic brain injuries or cardiac incidents, right? A lot of them, not all of them, but a good majority. So hopefully the science catches up. Like, my heart stopped. Again, we don't know for how long. So what does that mean 10, 20 years from now? Do I need to be extra careful of my heart? Is it going to calcify? What's going to be the long-term non-spiritual effects of my near-death experience? When people have a traumatic brain injury or a concussion, what does that mean after, like, okay, they have this near-death experience, they come back to life. And then all of a sudden the doctors say, hey, your brain is fine. Like we talked about, a lot of near-death experiencers come back healthier sometimes than when they first left the world. But what does that look like 20 years from now? And I think the beautiful thing of podcasts like yours and this big, like booming of like the acceptance of near-death experiences, I wonder if 10, 20, 30 years from now, if more doctors can normalize this and do more research on it beyond the I would say the fun aspects of like, do you come back a medium or a psychic, right? Like that's all really interesting, but scientifically, what changes? How does that change your body? How does it change your mind? When I'm 80, what is that going to look like for me? That's what I think is missing right now. And I would love to see more empirical evidence and things like that. For a psychotherapist or like a psychologist, any mental health profession, like what is the long-term effects of a near-death experience? There's some psychologists somebody will share that they are they get clairvoyance and they immediately go, well, you got to be schizophrenic then, which is such a shame. But I do think we're kind of on that cusp, hopefully, of educating more and more mental health workers that immediately labeling somebody as something because they had a near-death experience is counterproductive. You don't have to heal them, but send them to let them know that there's a world out there. There's podcasts like yours. There's conferences like the IANDS conference. There's organizations. There's anonymous sharing groups. I think the more we educate the mental health and just the medical world as a whole, I think that there will be more help. I think that there'll be more education and hopefully more real scientific studies. Because like me, I love reading like actual scientific studies and not just opinion pieces. For me, I think we are getting closer to really booming that. And I think you're doing a great job of helping that world, genuinely. So I think just growing that. I don't know if I'm answering Philip's question, but I think that that's missing right now.
Yeah.
It's more focus on the body and not less focus, but an equal focus on the spiritual side of stuff,
Yeah. No, I think you answered it. Yeah, that's your answer.
I feel like Abraham Lincoln, sometimes I'm long-winded, but there's a point in my head that I end with,
but everything you're sharing is so interesting. I'm the same too. I think I'm long-winded too, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going towards a point, I promise. So yes. I relate. So between the two of us, this is why it's going to be 2 episodes.
Perfect. We'll come back again. We'll do a part 3 later, right?
Yes. Are you scared to die?
I'm not scared to die. I'm not afraid of death. I feel I struggle. Like I know I've been very open. Like I struggle with having compassion for other people that are going through death or a loved one is, because I'm just so confident. Like you'll be able to talk to them after they leave. Mm-hmm. So I show compassion. I show love to that person, but I'm also so sure that you'll be able to get signs and you can communicate with them after they pass. Yes, you might not be able to feel their physical hug or kiss, or you might not be able to call them on the phone, which is of course easier. So because I'm so confident, sometimes I feel like I come across like I'm not as compassionate as I should be to other people's loss, which I'm aware of. Mm-hmm. I don't fear death, but now that I'm a dad, I also fear not having enough time with my son to communicate with him that he can communicate with me after I pass. Like I want him to be old enough where I can teach him the tools of like, dad will always be around and I am not going to miss you because I will be with you, but know that I'm with you as well. And so I think my fear is like me passing before I can give him those tools. I think that's a fear of mine, but am I afraid to die? No. I'm sure my wife, when she watches this podcast, is going to be like, you better not leave me. She always jokes. Right. She always jokes. A lot of people, my close circle, like acts like I'm a cat, like I have 9 lives,
Used up 2 of them already. Let's see, the car accident. And
I'm counting them.
7 more to go.
I have a little checklist, a little whiteboard, but no, I'm not afraid of death. I'm just afraid of maybe what I haven't accomplished before I go again, which is a good motivating tool for me. That doesn't stress me out. I think it's healthy to know that it could happen again when I least expect it. So I better keep pushing forward. I better keep educating myself. My personal way I think of growing is education, is continuing to go in school. Free resources, right? Like college is expensive for a lot of people and maybe not realistic, but we have so much access to free online learning and hopefully libraries wherever somebody lives and books and free books and all that stuff. Like I feel like educating for me it could heal the world if we all were able to learn a little bit more than we already know.
I agree with that. But I think there's also, I always think of education as there's so many ways to be educated. Sometimes it's a conversation with a person in a coffee shop. Sometimes it's, there's so many different ways that it can kind of constantly be in a state of learning.
I completely agree. School is not just books and going to class and accumulating student debt, even though, that's a great thing too for some people, but I do think that education is everywhere around us. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see, is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to share? Anything?
Yeah, I would. The only thing, if we have time for me to add, military and veterans is so important to me that if you know someone in the military, if you are, if you have a cousin, a brother, a extended relative, a friend that somehow served, let them know if it's the right time to mention it. Either you don't have to necessarily ask them if they've had a near-death experience, but let them know that there are resources out there. A lot of veterans stick with other veterans or in Facebook groups or meetups. I think the more veterans that know, and I say veterans, I also mean active duty too, of course. But there's so many resources out there. I think people just need to know about them. So if you're watching this and you know a veteran, let them know. Let them know that near-death experience is real and that there are organizations and meetup groups and anonymous groups that are available to them, and of course free of charge. So don't let money be a deterrent, to joining these groups, and know that there's no judgment. That we're all here, and camaraderie is so important for the military, and just share that with them.
Well, thank you so much, Chase. Where can our listeners find you, follow you, continue to learn from you?
I do on Instagram is a great way to connect with me. It's at Chase Skylar, Skylar. I do every week I do a couple of quick little 60-second videos on spirituality, and then also on science and the medical side of spirituality, which I think is fun to do. And then also I have a website that's kind of static. It's just got my contact information, and it's Chase DeMayo or ChaseSkylar.com. Either one, it's the same website. Great way. And then I'm looking forward to seeing you at the IANDS conference. I go every year, and usually am lucky enough to do at least a couple of speeches. So,
to get more information on what the fuck just happened, go to WTFJustHappened.net. There, you can order my book, WTF Just Happened, A Sciencey Skeptic Explores Grief, Healing, and Evidence of an Afterlife. You can learn all about how I came to conclude that there most likely is an afterlife, but you can also learn about the early stages of my grief and the amazing, fascinating people I met along the way. You can read about how much I harassed the mediums and scientists trying to get evidence to see if the mediums were cheating and see if what everyone was saying actually was true. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to stay updated on any new developments and any interesting new what the fuck updates. So if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It makes such a difference, especially for a new podcast like this one. And if any of you have had a crazy what the fuck yourself, have any questions, feedback, or just want to say hey, reach out on either Instagram at WTF_just_happened_, or email me at hello@WTFJustHappened.net. I love hearing from all of you. It makes my day hearing your stories and questions and feedback and all of it. And remember, you don't have to draw any final conclusions as you wonder, what the fuck just happened?